Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody in the self-help world wants to admit. Your relentless search for purpose, that shiny thing we're told will finally complete us, is actually the very thing keeping you stuck in place. We've turned the idea of a meaningful life into a high-pressure performance, and it's why so many of us are waking up exhausted before the day even starts.
That hits home when you stop to breathe. Because most of us aren't avoiding our potential, we're obsessing over it. There's this constant static in the back of our minds, a feeling that everyone else received a life manual that we somehow missed. It's like showing up for a final exam and realizing you didn't even know there was a syllabus.
And the cruelest part? The harder you try to solve your life, the heavier it feels. You buy the planners, download the manifestation apps, take the personality quizzes, and somehow end up more paralyzed than when you started. It's more pressure, not less. Eventually, you stop blaming the system and start wondering if the problem is actually you.
But it truly isn't. The glitch is in the question itself. We've inherited this rigid idea that purpose is a hidden treasure, a fixed destination out there in the future. We're told that until we locate it, we're incomplete. So we keep hunting, and that constant search state becomes a barrier to actually living.
I want to share a story that reframes this entirely. It's a classic from the philosopher Zhuangzi. Back in the 4th century BCE, a master carpenter traveling through a village encounters a massive tree, ancient, sprawling, with a canopy wide enough to shelter a crowd. And he doesn't pause. His apprentice is shocked. "Why didn't you stop? That wood is incredible." But the master says, "The wood is twisted and knotted. You can't make a boat out of it. It would sink. You can't make a coffin. It would rot. It's useless lumber." That night, the tree speaks to the carpenter in a dream. It asks, "What makes you think your narrow framework of usefulness is the only one that matters?"
We do that to ourselves every day. We walk past vibrant parts of our own souls because they don't fit the career story we're trying to tell. That hobby feels impractical, the skill that doesn't look good on LinkedIn, the version of you that exists right now before you've achieved anything. We dismiss these parts the way the carpenter dismissed the tree, not because they're mean, but because we're conditioned to value what can be used.
And here's the kicker about that useless tree. While the carpenter moved on to his next project, the tree kept growing for centuries. Birds nested in its knots. Travelers found shade under its twisted branches. It held an entire ecosystem together precisely because it was useless for the marketplace. It didn't pursue a purpose. It simply existed fully as what it was.
That is the opposite of how we're taught to build identity. Somewhere along the way, purpose got tangled up with productivity. Our society needs us to be measurable and efficient. That mindset moved from factories into our bedrooms and phones. Algorithms reward constant output. Even our rest gets optimized with sleep trackers and productivity hacks. We've turned our lives into side hustles.
Exactly. You stop asking, "What do I enjoy?" and start asking, "What should I be building for my brand?" The invisible supervisor moves into your head and you don't notice he's there. Soon, you aren't making choices based on joy. You're managing the optics of your life, even when you're alone. You're performing for an audience that isn't there.
And that does something specific to your brain. When you lock onto a single correct path, trying to become the right person, your mind filters out everything that doesn't serve that goal. The more intensely you hunt for the perfect life, the more invisible your actual life becomes. It's a tragic irony The harder you look for the light, the less you see of the world around you.
Which is why so many of us feel that hollowness when we finally hit a goal.
Most people reach a breaking point, maybe after a layoff, a breakup, or just a Tuesday where the plan stops making sense. That role you've been playing suddenly feels like a costume that's 3 sizes too small. That empty feeling isn't ingratitude, it's actually data. It's your system telling you the old story is dead. But because we fear the void, we rush to fill it immediately.
We panic. We grab a new self help book, a new diet, a new vision board. We're terrified that sitting in that quiet space means we're falling behind. We see the world moving at 100 miles per hour and feel like we're standing still.
But if you can stay in that useless space for a moment, something incredible happens. Your nervous system stops screaming. Now, this isn't because you've solved the puzzle, but it's because you've stopped performing for a future version of yourself that doesn't exist. In that silence, small things matter again. Those impractical curiosities you shelved years ago begin to whisper. Not because they're useful, but because they make you feel alive.
That's not drifting. That's how meaning actually arrives. It rarely appears as a clear directive. It surfaces through the things that pull your attention when you're not trying to be strategic.
There's that Taoist concept, Wu Wei, often called effortless action, but it's really acting from your nature. It's the difference between a river carving its path through stone and someone carrying buckets of water up a mountain. The carpenter was performing usefulness. The tree was practicing existence.
And in the end, the tree won. It outlasted the carpenter's tools. It sustained more life. Its influence was quiet and vast, and never once had to justify taking up space.
The version of you constantly straining, auditing your progress, checking the purpose boxes is unsustainable. It drowns out the quiet signals of who you already are. We spend so much time trying to find ourselves that we ignore the person already sitting in the chair.
The carpenter almost missed the most magnificent thing in the forest because it didn't fit his definition of value. He had a rigid framework, and because the world didn't measure up, he thought the world was broken. Please don't be the carpenter in your own life.
The question we want to leave you with isn't, what is my purpose? Is whether you can trust that your unoptimized self, with all your knots, quirks, and useless interests, is already exactly what the world needs.
You don't need a certificate to start being yourself. The tree didn't wait for a permit to grow toward the sun. It just grew. And the birds followed, and the shade followed. Everything else was a byproduct of just being. It's a radical act to stop organizing your life around a ghost of who you should be and start paying attention to the human being who is actually here right now.
If that feels uncomfortable or even a little scary, then good. That's the right place to start. Don't rush to the next step, sit with it. Notice the knots in your story and see if you can find the beauty in them. The tree didn't have a 5-year plan, and neither do you.
If today's talk gave you a different lens on your growth, we'd love for you to support this channel. A simple like, a subscription, or sharing this with a friend who's feeling stuck helps us keep these conversations going. If you want to know when we release more of these, hit the notification bell. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.